Hello everybody, and welcome to the kitchen at Gale Woods Farm. We're here bottling up the last of our maple syrup for the season, and we thought it'd be a good opportunity for a science lesson around the concept of specific gravity, which is how we measure the density of our syrup to know if it's finished. So we're going to start off with a science experiment. Some of you might remember this from chemistry class in high school, talking about solution. And how we have a solution here which is starting as 2 cups of water, and we're going to add 1 cup of sugar to this water, and you would expect perhaps that 2 plus 1 equals 3, so if we add a cup of sugar to our 2 cups of water, we would expect the volume to go up to 3 cups. But as you can see, the volume does not increase. Our solution is still only 2 cups in volume. What did increase in our solution was the density, because the sugar granules dissolved into solution and took up the space between the water molecules. As a result, this solution is more dense. We measure density using a cool little tool called a hydrometer, which is basically a calibrated glass tube which we can float in the solution to see how dense it is. So we've brought some of the last sap from our sugar bush down here to the kitchen. And we're going to measure the density of this sap using our hydrometer. So if you look at this sap, you can see it's not perfectly clear because there is sugar in the sap. But it starts off at a very low concentration. And we're going to use our hydrometer to measure the concentration of this sap. This is our hydrometer cup. I'm pouring the sap in here so we can float our hydrometer and measure the sugar content of our sap. And if we put this in here, we should see that the sap has a density, or a concentration, of about 3%. About 3% sugar per water. I'll turn it so you can see the numbers. So this is a sap hydrometer which measures from 0 to 8%, and our sap typically comes in at about 3% sugar. Now, those of you that have done maple syruping before know that it takes about 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup, about a 40-to-1 ratio. So we have to boil it and boil it and boil it until we get that concentration up to a much higher level, and we'll measure that in our finished syrup with a syrup hydrometer, which has a very different scale. The scale on this hydrometer goes from 45 to 75 bricks, and finished syrup, when it's cold, has a measurement of about 67 bricks. And so in our finished syrup, that hydrometer is floating at this red line, which tells us that it's at 68 bricks, or 67 bricks, which is finished maple syrup. That means that maple syrup has a high enough concentration that A, it tastes delicious, and B, that it won't spoil because the sugar concentration prevents mold and other bacteria from getting into the syrup and spoiling it. So now we have highly concentrated syrup that we can use on our pancakes, and we can store it for a whole year, and it tastes delicious. So, happy boiling, and hope you can make it out to Gale Woods to get some syrup later this summer.